Alright, you bastards, this is Some-Belgian-prepper and this is Mr. Itward, my roommate. So, today we're going to talk about survival uses of one of those medical skeletons. So, before we start, if you're interested in detective stories, there will be a link to my first book called Bloody Crosses. It's in Dutch. If you're interested, take a look in the description, I would say. So, I mentioned in a previous video that I would do something with Mr. Itward. First it was for shits and giggles, but then it made me realize, yeah, this skeleton like this could be useful during survival scenarios. And we were going to talk about them. First of all, the obvious one is a good teaching device. As you can see, it is one that you can hang on to something. I'm gonna give you a little bit back. His previous life, he worked in the Gulag camp, was 3 days before retirement. So yeah, a medical skeleton like this could be very handy for teaching purposes. First of all, you can learn about all the bones, of course, in the human body. And that way, if you have a good visual representation, because often if you look into, if you look into medical books, it's easy to see the skeletons, but it's a whole other story if you can look at the skeleton, measure up how it would look. Imagine if you put your hands on his hands, you can see exactly where each of the little bones are. You can take a better guess where, contrary to you, everything is, how it looks. And this could be handy if, in case there is, how do you say this, a medical emergency and there is no medical professional help on the way. You can perhaps see, oh, there's a bone cracked here, or something's broken there, how it would look, how we can apply the best medical care that we can offer in this scenario, and it can give you a good visual representation of that. So that's one of the first things I would say is very handy. You can learn a lot of it, and that's also the second thing I would say is a good teaching device for everyone in the house, so to say. So you can learn children biology with this, especially during a war or some civil unrest. You want to teach your children, and this is a good way because children, they will find books boring, and this is something fun, exciting. It's something that you can touch really. So with a playful way, it's a good teaching device also for kinder for biology. So that's also very handy in emergency scenarios where schools are not available, so to say. All right, next thing I would say is tactical. Let me stick it towards a little bit back. For example, it could be a very good tactical tool, so to say. Imagine if you are going to do some close quarter shooting and you want to practice. You don't want to do it on, how do you say, onto a person you know, because you never point a gun at someone you don't intend to destroy. So, for example, if you want to practice, of course, with an empty gun and always finger on the trigger. If you want to imagine, how do you say this? If you want to train a close quarter, so imagine you want to train how to take your gun out of your waistband or some other place where you want to keep your gun and want to practice where you're going to shoot without pointing it at someone real. And this way, it's yet again that teaching device. You got a visual 3D representation of where you would shoot, like the belly, chest, sternum, throat, head, that kind of way, or in the leg, or you want to, how do you say this, hold them back. For example, if you want to, you can place the hands wherever you want them, so you can then do something like this. So these are all kind of a good training device. The same thing goes for if you are going to use a longer rifle. For example, if you want to train, if somebody is coming right at you or is getting too close for comfortable, you can train to train for a close quarter combat, or use like bayonet practice, that kind of stuff. So that is also a good training tool in that way. Another thing you can do is use it as a scarecrow. You can hang some, like I showed you, the ring on top of his head. You can hang it onto your fields, and because it's a skeleton, it's something that's, as you can see, it's something that can move with the wind, looks like a person, is big, and it can scare away birds and some smaller pests, perhaps, that are accustomed to humans. So that's also a very good way to use it. Another thing I would say is as a decoy. If you are afraid that there will be a burglar inside of your house, home invasion or whatever, if you have Mr. Itward here, for example, is being clothed, and you can use it as a tactical decoy in case you are waiting with the gun for the burglar, and when they are inside, a burglar, home invader, whatever, they will. We humans are programmed to recognize human shapes, and you are breaking into somebody's house. You don't know the terrain, you don't know who's inside of it, you only have a flashlight and perhaps your gun. You're going around, and suddenly you go around the corner and you see this. You and people, and usually burglars, not professional burglars, I would say, they will be perhaps shooting, or they will attack, or they will be scared, and they will perhaps run away, fight back, and that will give you the advantage to surprise them, to ambush them, and that is a tactical decoy, I would say, that you can use in this way. Another thing is, it is very handy for Halloween. Yeah, for shits and giggles, having a skeleton is very fun, I would say. It's something that if other people get into your home, it's the first thing they notice. Oh, you got a skeleton in your room, in your living room. Oh, it's fun for Halloween, for the kids, that kind of stuff. It's always something to talk about. So, yeah, it's a good conversation starter, so to say. Not very good for first dates, I would say. That's from my own experience. But nonetheless, it's a very fun thing. And the last thing I would say is it's a good symbol and awareness of death, I would say. It might sound a little bit grim, but a lot of people, yeah, of course, they are afraid of death. They don't want to see death. Everything that reminds them about death, it's something that they cannot accept. But if you have been in life-threatening situations, you will know how vulnerable you and humans in generally are. Death is something that will happen to anyone, and you just have to accept that. A lot of people have problems with that, and having a skeleton as a symbol inside of your house that you will pass every day is a good reminder, and it will dull this fear of death, I would say. Because I see Mr. Itwards, and I just see that someday I will become something like him, and it's okay. You will learn to accept it. But somebody who is not accustomed to it can learn it that way as a sort of symbol. Also for children, it can be a handy tool in that kind of regard, I would say. So yeah, it might sound a little bit grim, but I found it very important that you accept death, and if you never come in contact with that, they always say that you will truly become a grown up at your first funeral, and in a way that's made you realize how precious life is. And Mr. Itward, as a symbol of death, in a fun way, can help manage that. And like I said before, it's a fun thing to have, to teach about, to be aware, to get accustomed to. And yeah, it's perhaps my little quirk here, but that is how I see things. And yeah, you got to accept that we all gonna die someday. And as a prepper, we are trying to play the game of staying alive the longest. It's like a game of tag with the Grim Reaper, so to say. And yeah, like I said, it's a fun thing. You can put clothes on side on top of Mr. Itward, especially for children. It can be fun like this. And why the fuck not? It's something very fun, very good educational, teach you a lot. It's a good dummy. The only thing that is perhaps also useful, but I would not recommend it because a lot of people will go too far, using it as a way to learn to fight. In that regard, if you want to learn to aim for the sternum, if you want to aim for the jaw with a hook, or perhaps with an elbow, or perhaps for the groin, or to block that kind of stuff. You can learn with that, but be aware that Mr. Itward is very fragile in that regard. So it's more of a handy tool for shadow boxing. Excuse me, for shadow boxing, I would say, instead of really touching it. Alright, so these were all the survival uses for a medical skeleton inside of your house, and these are not that very expensive, because this is not a real skeleton, it is just something they use in classrooms, but nonetheless, it's very fun. I hope this video was educational and made you realize some things, or perhaps give you some ideas, and I would say like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and see you next video. Cheers, and say goodbye to Mr. Itward. Perhaps he will come into some other videos. I don't know when, but perhaps. We'll see. Right, see you later.